Hey everybody, it's Lynn Hayes. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you've had a great week and I hope you enjoyed the new moon in Aquarius. It felt pretty powerful to me, all of that Aquarian energy, all focused with 6 planetary bodies in Aquarius, a lot of sparkly mental energy. It was fairly intense for some people, myself included, but now we have this new opportunity for a new beginning. And really the story of 2021 is about change. It's about moving into the future and letting go of the past. And how are we going to do that? That's always the question. This week we have the first square between the planet Saturn and the planet Uranus. I've talked about this before, but this is a major alignment of the year. And what's interesting about this particular square between Saturn and Uranus is that both of these planets are the rulers of Aquarius. Now, if you follow astrology, you'll hear a lot of argument about the rulership of Aquarius. There are a lot of astrologers who say, no, Uranus doesn't rule Aquarius. It has nothing to do with Aquarius. It's only Saturn. And then you'll hear some astrologers say, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Of course it is. Saturn is the old ruler. We've gotten rid of that. But really, there are 2 rulers to Aquarius, Saturn and Uranus. We can't let go of the old rulers. But just like life has changed in the past 3,000 years since we've been looking at these planets, our interpretation of the astrology has also changed. Every time a new planet is discovered, it adds a layer of knowledge and wisdom to the consciousness of the mainstream. When Uranus was discovered, there was a surge of personal liberty. There were a number of revolutions all across the world in the late 1700s. The United States, there was one in Russia. There was the Industrial Revolution, and of course, Uranus rules technology. So with both of these planets, the rulers of Aquarius, in a square to each other, it's almost like a battle for change between those who want change to happen the old way, which is the Saturn piece, and those who want a complete radical transformation, which is the Uranus piece. Uranus is not afraid of breaking things up. Uranus is Antifa, if you will, and Saturn is the old guard. We've always done it this way. This has always worked. Why should we change it? So these 2 forces are battling in the sky, and we will see that, of course, on the ground as well. And under the influence of Saturn and Aquarius, we're going to see some restriction, some limitation as a result of the needs of society, the needs of the collective, which is one of the things that Aquarius is involved with. Over this 2-year period with Saturn squaring Uranus, we're likely to see some restrictions in the global internet. We're likely to see more censorship, just like we've seen with Twitter and with Instagram, shutting down some accounts. We're likely to see a curbing of free speech because Uranus, again, wants freedom and Saturn creates restriction. We're likely to see the evolution of financial markets out of big corporations. We saw a little bit of that with the whole Robinhood GameStop debacle that happened a couple of weeks ago, where all of these kids, basically who knew nothing about investing, got themselves in a lot of financial trouble by making free trades on the internet. Well, as we know, nothing is free on the internet. If something is free, you're the product. And of course, this is turning out to be a big data mining experiment. I think we're likely to see more of that as we go deeper into the square of Saturn to Uranus. Saturn, remember, being the big investment corporations, and then Uranus being the new guys, the little guys, wanting to have a seat at the table. I think we're likely to see more climate refugees. Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, which has to do with food sources, agriculture, and as the climate continues to change, it's going to be more and more difficult for people to find ways to feed themselves. And I think we'll start to see more of that in the next couple of years under the square from Saturn to Uranus. And also some cultural ideas that tend to go to extremes. Now, on the positive side, we are moving into kind of a new dimension, the age of Aquarius, we're all talking about it, and we have to find ways to change. And under the square from Saturn to Uranus, it becomes easier to make those changes. Uranus stimulates change. Uranus forces Saturn to let go of the past and move into the future. And this will also take place in our own life. And of course, COVID has changed so much. So the first exact hit of the square from Saturn to Uranus occurs on February 17th. And that is really the biggest and really the only major planetary event that will take place this week. So now let's just go right to the week ahead. On Monday, February 15th, when this video drops, the moon is in Aries and it's harmonizing with all of the Aquarius planets. The moon has moved out of Aquarius now. It was in Pisces for a couple of days after the new moon, and now it's in Aries. When the moon is in Aries, there's a lot of energy and a lot of focus. It's easier to assert ourselves, to express our will. And when the moon is harmonizing with all of these planets, we don't really have very many blocks that keep us from achieving what it is that we want. Now, it's important to remember that Mercury is retrograde. So even though under the moon in Aries, we feel ready to make decisions, ready to take action, but Mercury is retrograde, so we have to think. We have to look before we leap, and we have to make sure that all of the ducks are in a row before we make that decision. The moon in Aries can be somewhat impulsive, especially when it is supported by all of these other planets. So just watch for that, but it's really a very good day for action and for physical energy. Then on Tuesday, February 16th, and remember this whole time, the alignment from Saturn to Uranus is building. And there might be a lot of pressure for change that's coming at us from the outside. And so these lunar aspects and these smaller aspects I'll be talking about for the planets of the week are going to be underpinning this bigger cycle. So on Tuesday, February 16th, the Aries moon is going to make a square to Pluto. Pluto is the last of the planets in Capricorn. And when the Aries moon is square Pluto, there can be some disruption. There can be some power conflicts and some very intense emotions. That happens in the early afternoon Eastern time, and it's possible that there could be some conflict at that time, so just watch for that. That should only last for a couple of hours, so by the early afternoon, say 3 or 4 o'clock Eastern time, the moon will start harmonizing with the sun, and then it will move into Taurus at 10:11 p.m. on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have the first hit of the Saturn square to Uranus that I was talking about earlier. We also have a semi-sextile, which I like to call an inconjunct. The two planets are right next to each other, 30 degrees apart, but everybody calls it a semi-sextile, so I go with the flow. But in any case, the 30-degree angle aspect is a very difficult one. It's a minor aspect, it's not really powerful. But unlike a square, a 90-degree angle aspect or a 180-degree aspect, there's no real resolution. There's just an unease, a discomfort that we can't really release. It's like having a stone in the shoe. Now, Chiron is in the sign that's ruled by Mars, and so that's somewhat helpful. But on Wednesday, February 17th, you might feel all day just kind of a nagging feeling that something is wrong. Mars tends to irritate the sensitive places in our psycho-spiritual system that Chiron is involved with. And when there's that irritation, but there's not a crisis that creates some kind of release, it can just be a little uncomfortable. If that happens, just watch to see what's being triggered. It may just be an energy that's in the body that's ready to be released. There may be a thought form attached to it or an emotion. But it's an opportunity, as any kind of Chiron experience is, to release and to heal. All in all, this is a day to pay attention to how you're feeling inside, to take some deep breaths, to center, to release. Try to make sure that you're not holding on to things that are keeping you stuck. Mars is a trigger to activate, and release is always possible under the Mars influence. Then on Thursday, February 18th, the sun will move into Pisces at around 2:30 p.m. The sun moving into Pisces and out of Aquarius sort of ends the jangly, nervous energy of the big Aquarius stellium and starts to take us into the Pisces season. We can start to relax. It's a good time for creativity. It's a good time generally to cultivate more of a peaceful experience. Then on Friday, February 19th, the moon moves into Gemini at 11:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Also on that day, we have Venus in Aquarius in a challenging square to Mars, which is in Taurus. Venus longs for connection, for beauty, for peacefulness. Mars does not. Mars craves action, aggression. Didn't you hear what I said? It's much more assertive. Mars is in Taurus, though, as we've been talking about, where it's calmer and more peaceful, and Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is square to Mars, if you're following my logic. So that's going to soften this aspect somewhat. Whenever there's a square, there's some conflict, sometimes a crisis that resolves a situation. So this could be a day where there's some interpersonal issues. It would not be a good day to schedule a meeting with a boss or a coworker or somebody that you have a lot of conflict with, because it could be very difficult for there to be understanding. This is a time when there's more conflict, more kind of jockeying for position, if you will. So just wait until the next day for that, if that's possible. And of course, always remember the thread of Mercury retrograde that's going through the week, that is turning direct on the 20th, which is the next day, but Mercury is still retrograde, and so there's likely to be some miscommunication anyway. But that would be a good day to kind of avoid any problems that you can. And on Saturday, February 20th, Mercury does turn direct. We can start to breathe a sigh of relief, but until Mercury starts to pick up speed, which takes a week to 10 days, we still need to be careful. Mercury is still very close to the Earth. It still has a big impact in communication, and the precision of communication is still very important. We also have a very active moon that day, which is in the sign of Gemini, ruled by Mercury. So just generally on Saturday the 20th, there is a lot of mental energy, a lot of communication, talking, chattering. It's a good day for anything involving learning or speaking, because everybody is a little bit more curious and more easily able to listen and to hear. Then Mercury goes direct at 7:51 p.m., as I said, and then on Sunday, February 21st, it's a pretty quiet day with the planets. The Gemini moon is harmonizing in a trine to Venus, which again is very good for communication. And then the moon enters Cancer at 10:52 p.m. Eastern Time. The moon moving into Cancer brings us more in touch with our emotions, more in touch with feelings. We're more sensitive to other people. We want to be more connected, and there's more of a sense of nurturing. And we often are more interested in cooking and in eating delicious food, also under the influence of Cancer. Now on Monday, February 22nd, we'll have a new video, but the Cancer moon is going to form a square to Chiron, which is in Aries. This happens fairly regularly, but for a few hours when the Cancer moon, which is so sensitive and feels everything so deeply, when the Cancer moon is irritated by Chiron, the planet of wounding and healing, we can be more reactive if these wounds are triggered in some way. So try to be conscious of that when you're having discussions with anybody, when you're interacting. We're all going to be a little bit more sensitive and more vulnerable on that day. And we'll have a new video then. So I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for being with me today. Please leave any comments or any questions for me down below, and I will see you next week.